guys. So this is not good news. We were talking about DNC rigging the other day, and it seems like there's more rigging going on. There's some rigging already happening, and then there's prospect for even further rigging. So this comes from Common Dreams. It says, cadre of DNC insiders plot return of superdelegates to stop Sanders at the convention. So it's very interesting. This comes from Politico. It says, quote, in conversations on the sidelines of a DNC executive committee meeting and in telephone calls and texts in recent days, about a half dozen members have discussed the possibility of a policy reversal to ensure that so-called superdelegates can vote on the first ballot at the party's national convention. Such a move would increase the influence of DNC members, members of Congress, and other top party officials, who now must wait until the second ballot to have their say if the convention is contested. So what you have to understand about how superdelegates work now are, superdelegates now, they only can vote on a second ballot, which means if a candidate doesn't meet the delegate threshold, all right, the person, if there's a brokered convention, superdelegates then vote in the second round. So something that I'm personally worried about is, what if Bernie doesn't hit the threshold? And this is the most likely scenario. He's probably not going to hit the threshold. So he doesn't hit the threshold, and then it ends up going to a second vote, and then superdelegates come in and essentially override the will of the people, despite the fact that Bernie would have, he would have a plurality, or, in the case, I don't know if it would probably be a plurality. He would have the most votes out of anybody else, but he wouldn't hit the threshold, and then the superdelegates would steal it. So superdelegates are just, I believe every congressional member is a superdelegate or something like that. Every Democratic one, obviously. So it's like, it's literally the most establishment thing I've ever heard of. Republicans don't even have any version of superdelegates, which is insane that the Democrats have it. But it's essentially there to safeguard for the establishment, protect the establishment, and to prevent progressive movement. Essentially is what it is there for, which is very concerning, of course. So now what they're trying to do is they're trying to get it reversed. There are members of the DNC who are saying this now. Tom Perez said absolutely not. He said that the rules are already set. So Tom Perez, obviously being the DNC chair, which was Keith Ellison, not Tom Perez, he was installed by Barack Obama in response to Keith Ellison being in the lead for the DNC chair race. But here's another thing. So Tom Perez says that about that, but they've already basically, rigged it. And so what they did is they altered the rules for entering the debate arbitrarily to benefit billionaire Michael Bloomberg. So Michael Bloomberg can't make the debates because no one's donating to his campaign, but he's polling because he bought his way into the election. So he's at like 8% in some polls, which is a very significant amount to basically purchase your way into. Very, very worrisome and scary stuff here. But they basically just straight up changed the rules, taking away the donor requirement. It says the DNC announced Friday afternoon that the criteria for making the debate stage will no longer include a requirement about individual donors, allowing Bloomberg, whose campaign is largely self-funded, to join the candidates if his polling numbers reach the new threshold. So what you've got here is just this. And by the way, Ryan Grimm from The Intercept says, just before jumping into the race, Bloomberg gave $325K to the DNC on top of the gobs he spent on ads this month. Totally normal system. So again, he's giving a bunch of money to the DNC, as well as I believe he's even giving money to other Democratic establishment candidates, and so they're doing favors for the guy. And so Tom Perez says, we're not going to reverse it, but when you've already basically switched the system to benefit Bloomberg, how can I trust you? Can I trust you? Of course not. So that's my worry about this. What if they do reverse this? Because I have to tell you, if they reverse the superdelegate rule right now, which I don't think they will, hopefully, I'm hoping they don't. I don't think they will, because it would be too disruptive. That may be the end of a Bernie Sanders campaign, because then we're going to get the same bullshit, which is the delegate counters that have Joe Biden in the lead by like 600 delegates. You know what I mean? Even though Bernie's winning or he's slightly behind. And that'll ruin the election completely. And I will say this up front. I'll say this up front, definitively 100%. If they end up reversing the rules, I'm pulling a Jimmy Dore. Same thing goes for if they are to cheat Bernie out of the election by him getting more delegates than anybody else, and then superdelegates jumping in. That's it for me. I'm done with the Democratic Party. I'm leaving forever. I will never vote for a Democrat ever again in my life. Going full Jimmy Dore. That applies if they steal it from him or right now, if they decide to basically put, the vote in the first round instead of a second ballot, same thing goes for that, because they'd be stealing the election at that point.